More than 320 people were left injured following a collision between two passenger trains at the Van Riebeeck Park station near Kempton Park in Gauteng last night. The collision happened at 5:50 p.m. after one of the trains headed from Park Station to Pretoria collided from the rear end with another train that was faulty and stationary at the Van Riebeeck station. Protests have flared up in Ennerdale on Friday morning as hundreds of residents go ahead with planned shutdown in parts of Gauteng over what they say is the neglect of coloured communities. Today's demonstration came after angry residents took to the streets in Westbury over the killing of a woman during the alleged gang violence. They also highlighted their dissatisfaction with what they believe is the lack of prioritization of people who identify as coloured. For greater insight, we spoke with MMC of Safety and Security, Micheal Sun. The Springboks versus the All Blacks. This weekend, the Springboks will need the whole nation's support in defying odds against them as they tackle an old foe on the field of Loftus this Saturday. They take on the All Blacks in their last test of this year's Rugby Championships.
Ball away nicely for Ioane. So once again, the Springboks will have to make some
MMC Micheal Sun, thank you for coming to the show to talk to us about the Westbury incident.
Thank you very much. It's always nice to be with you.
Now, Westbury has been in the headlines for, unfortunately, the wrong reasons, the shooting of the mother and the injury to her child. Are we likely to see more disruptions taking place?
Well, Leroy, over the past day and a half, we have seen Westbury becoming much calmer. We haven't seen any incidences, but of course, there are some anger still to be expressed by the residents. We are keeping a very close watch on the developments, and unfortunately, we don't have a firm commitment from the community members to say that they will now stop. But what we are seeing is that the community members themselves are starting to clean up after the violent protest. So I want to take it as a good sign, as an indication, as a show of good faith that they are beginning to restore order so that the police officers are able to get into Westbury and surrounding area to do their crime fighting work and jobs.
Now I want to put you on the spot here. Was their reason for the disruptions justified?
Look, I believe this, and I firmly believe that as South Africans, we all have right to protest, but it's the manner and the approach and how the protest is being carried out that is important. I do not believe any kind of violence would resolve a lot of the social ills that we face. Certainly from what we saw at Westbury, by burning down a rear-vise station, blocking the roads, stoning police officers and police cars. In fact, when I was in Westbury on Monday night with my JMPD officers, we rode in an armored vehicle. We were stoned, numerous times. Rocks just flew. We were petrol bombed 3 times. For me, that kind of violence, that senseless of criminal behavior, does not resolve any issues that's being highlighted by the community. Yes, you may receive a lot of tension. So to answer your question, I believe that the communities do have a right to protest. They do have a right to be angry. They have a right to be very upset of the issues that's being raised. In fact, I agree with them that we need to resolve these issues. But the criminal behavior, the destruction, that is not acceptable.
Now, one of the issues that they raised was poor policing by the JMPD, by SAPS. How have you managed to tackle that within your own organization?
In terms of the city of Johannesburg, of course, our Department of Public Safety, we've always been in and around the Westbury area. A lot of the operations, the anti-drug campaigns we've conducted, the crime prevention activities. But, of course, once these issues have been drowned out by more issues raised by the community, and very unfortunately the killing of the mother in Westbury and injuring of her child. These efforts seems to be put on the wayside, but we understand that there's a lot of more work to do. We've identified various hotspots. In fact, yesterday morning I had another urgent meeting with my JMPD team. Some of the immediate term that we've set out to say that one, we're going to be conducting operations to eliminate illegal firearms, because there are many gun-related violence happening in Westbury. Secondly, of course, the anti-drugs campaign. We want to go out to ensure that we have intensified stop and searches to search for illegal firearms, drugs and whatever other illegal activities taking place. Our Operation Buyam Teto will be intensified, and a very important hotspot area that we have identified is the increase of visible policing and patrols around schools, hospitals, where there are more likelihood of innocent people being injured. So these are the short-term and immediate actions we'll be taking. But I think a long-term solution, we need to work with the community members.